Yeah.
Yes, it's evening, 7:30 p.m. So,
Awesome. What's the weather like?
so in Chennai we have really hot weather,
Oh.
and it's getting hotter.
Oh,
It
yeah.
gets worse. Yeah,
Oh no. So what do
we
you
used to have we used to have winters maybe about 15, 20 years ago,
Oh no.
but there are no winters now.
Oh no. That's really terrible actually. It's important to have winter. We have like we used to have terrible winters, but now they're more mild. So, hey, Pinky is awesome. Look at you.
Yeah, thanks, JP.
Can you explain your nickname? That's so awesome.
Yeah, so I was born in South India,
Hmm.
and babies are not, I mean, there's a lot of color bias that we face in our community. And
Oh.
when I was born, I was really a pink baby, and
Oh.
it's as simple as that. The hospital staff started calling me Pinky, and that name just stuck.
No
Yeah.
way. From the very beginning.
Right. So half my world knows me as Pinky, and the other half Pranitha.
Yeah.
Growing up, it was quite confusing internally, but today I'm able to be comfortable with both Pinky and Pranitha, and they've become one.
Oh,
So,
well, that's good. Whoa. Yeah, that'd be really, isn't like, is that like the sense of humor? Is that like the culture? Or is it not really funny, but you've embraced it?
as in the color, I sorry, I didn't get your question.
Yeah, like the comment on the color of your skin, I guess.
No, in fact, I think fair skin is considered better here, which
Mm.
is
Oh, okay. Hmm.
absolute discrimination.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And
Hmm.
hi, Janani. I can see Rayla. Hi.
That's great. Well, same here in my family. If I ever got a really big tan, so if I was running around, then my mom would start making comments, and she just would not like it.
Yes. Right.
Which is not good. Yeah, yeah. And so my family was pretty racist. We had to have like various conversations with my mom
Hmm.
because she would make really
Yeah, I
dramatic
kind of
comments.
like, I was trying to think about when did I first feel there is, inequality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I saw that in my family first because we have three sisters and a brother.
Mm-hmm.
All sisters, we are fair, and my brother's dark.
Okay.
And he got nicknamed Daridram, which means a curse.
Oh,
And it got me thinking, why would the skin color make somebody a curse?
that's terrible.
So I was very young. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. There are roots. I mean, when I look back, these are things as a child that triggered, just the inequality, and for me to start to notice that all of us are not treated equally. Right?
Mm-hmm. How's your brother? Is he okay?
He's okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So hopefully he goes by his real name instead.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sure he's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It's cool though because like being well, yeah, it was like something I needed to embrace too, my ethnicity, especially growing up in Western Canada. Um, but it was really fun because I went to Vancouver, for example, like about, I don't know, 15 years ago. And I went to an Indigenous community center. And then one of the ladies asked me where I was born. And I said I'm from Calgary. And then she asked me if I was Cree. So she asked me
Okay.
if I was Indigenous too. And I was like, that was awesome. I was like, no, but I wish, but no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that people, assume that I am part of them. And this other
Mm-hmm.
guy, he asked me if I was from Mexico. And I'm like, wow, no, but that's awesome. I take it as a compliment.
Right. Yeah. In India, we have so many uh, different states, and yeah, we look different across India. Yeah.
Hmm.
Similar, but there is a huge divide with the north and south, and also our friends from northeast are different looking.
Yeah,
But I think growing up, we never really saw any differences. We just embraced everybody, and I think we still do that.
yeah.
But probably due to maybe political reasons or other reasons, people like to divide,
Oh,
and
yes.
it helps, So,
Hmm.
but I think as human beings, we uh, naturally don't look at each other
Hmm.
that way until we are taught, is what I believe.
Right. Well, yeah, and it's really interesting because when I went to Regent College, I did my master's in theology in Vancouver, and there were actually five people from Nagaland, which is northeast India.
Wow.
And it was
Yes.
cool. I'd never really known that there was like an entire chunk of the country and that they actually
We
looked,
have 7 states.
yeah, wow. And they looked
Yeah.
really like me. They looked really
Yeah.
Asian, and yeah, it was really cool. And then he invited me to his wedding a couple of years later, and I really wish I had gone because it would have been so much fun. Yeah,
Yeah. It's a beautiful part of our nation. And, I mean, in every way,
yeah,
beautiful.
wow,
Just the terrain and the forests and the people. Yeah. The
wow.
culture.
That's amazing. So, like, I'm gonna put you down. I was trying to like get the battery going on my power up my phone so it doesn't die on me. Anyway, okay, that's awesome. Have you been able to travel your country quite a bit?
I have. Yeah. I think I've traveled right from north, south, east, west. Yeah. Almost.
Wow,
Not all the states, but yes, I've traveled quite a bit.
that's
And I love traveling. I enjoy it.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh man, that's so good. Well, I have traveled a little bit of Canada, but it's hard. I haven't really been everywhere. I'd love to go north, like to the.
Yeah, for me, I was lucky because my work took me to places.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah,
yeah, so
I need a
I
job
love
like that.
meeting people, embracing, just understanding their culture. Um, I love food, so tasting different types of food.
Mmm.
Yeah.
Me too. Okay, so yeah, I feel like you have to come to. Have you been to Canada?
No, I
Oh
haven't.
no. Okay, you must come. We'll
Yeah.
we'll eat our way through. That'll be really fun. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I can handle all the spices though, but I can I'm pretty tough, but I don't know if I might cry. Anyway, hey, I just want to say welcome, and it's at the top of the hour, or for us it's 9 in the morning for me. So, good morning.
Well, good morning to you, and I know people are joining us from across the globe. So I see Angie, and lovely to see you there from Ukraine.
That's so fun. Yeah, welcome to
Yeah.
everybody. So, in this Instagram live, if you have questions, feel free, or even, you're already typing your comments, which was awesome, but if you have questions, you can always ask them too. Yeah, so that we can answer them, or Pranitha can answer them. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate, because honestly, I'm sure you're really busy these days. So,
No, it's a privilege for me, and I look forward to this conversation.
yeah.
Love just knowing you, and
Uh,
you know, just spending some time with you, especially at conferences. That's where we
yeah,
usually meet.
I know.
But just the way you've encouraged me, so thankful to
Oh,
have you as a friend. and to be
Oh,
on this call. Yeah.
well, holy moly. You're an inspiration. So I'm just, yeah. I don't know if you knew, you probably didn't know, in Jakarta, when you were speaking, I think a lot of us started getting strep throat. Did you get sick? I was sick. But I knew you were speaking, so I dragged myself out of bed and I came
No.
over just to hear you speak. And then a couple of friends of mine were in the just outside of the conference room, and they were also sick and they were about to go to bed. And I was like, "Get in there!" Just like, go inside. You'll thank me later because it's gonna be awesome. And so they came inside and we
Thank
all
you.
sat in just to listen to you. And then my friends were like, "Wow, she's amazing." And I'm like, "I know." And then I went back to bed.
Thank you for making it and for getting the others to come. Yeah.
Yeah. Did we meet? You were at Cape Town? I think you were one of the speakers, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
Whoa.
2010,
Hmm.
Cape Town. 4 minutes on stage.
How many?
It was 4 minutes on the
Wow.
stage. Yeah, but I mean, I realized that it wasn't easy to get the 4 minutes,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
was by a pure miracle, maybe.
Ooh.
But yeah, Cape Town just changed my life
Yeah.
so much. Just to meet people from 200 countries, people with different passions and goals in life, and just to
Hmm.
see the amazing work being done across the globe
Yes.
and to meet amazing people. Yeah, it just changed my
Me
life. Yeah.
too. Me too. Yeah, I was working with InterVarsity in Canada, and then they asked me to come and help them with the program team to provide all the operational support for the program. And so I quit InterVarsity Canada, and that was my first thing after leaving InterVarsity, and it just catapulted me into here's the church, like the global church, which is was
Wow.
amazing for me to see all these people from around the world who shared our faith and were doing incredible
Mm-hmm.
work around the world, and then just to rub elbows with some really people that I really admired, like Ramez Atala, Doug Birdsall,
Yes.
and you're like, oh,
Yes.
this is so amazing. I think I'm already in heaven.
Yeah.
And all the different
Yeah,
speakers.
it was beautiful. Yeah.
So were you involved with the Lausanne movement before that, or was that your first time?
I wasn't. In fact, it was a shock for me because I just got an invitation saying, "Can you speak for maximum 10 minutes?" And my daughter at that point was, I think, 2010. So she was about 3.5 years old.
Oh,
So I asked my husband, can you manage 10 days of me traveling?
oh,
Can you manage our daughter? And he said, go ahead.
oh,
So it was interesting because when I landed at Cape Town,
yeah.
I hadn't even registered, and they're like, I'm sorry you're not on the list.
Uh-oh.
I'm like, but I'm supposed to speak. They're like, no way. So then I had to show them the invite, and they're like passing on the laptop. Oh, she's a speaker.
Oh
It
no.
was funny. It was fun, humbling, but I've faced that many times. So
I'm so
yeah,
sorry.
and I did not expect 5,000 people there. I was
Oh, I know.
expecting very few.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea what Lausanne. That was my introduction,
Hmm.
and yeah, it was, like I said, life changing. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so sorry that you weren't on the registration list. Maybe that was my fault.
That's fine.
Sorry.
No, no, no. It's fun. Those are my fun stories.
Yeah,
I
it
like
was
to
fun.
look at. Yeah.
I loved even registration day with the everybody in the lobby of the convention center in Cape Town, and it was what I say is the crush of humanity. Like everybody was there, and then
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know Gideon Paramalam from Nigeria.
No.
Yeah, I went to Nigeria actually in 2003, 2004. He invited me to come to because he was involved with IFES in Nigeria. So I
Okay.
knew him And then in the lobby at Cape Town, he emerges from the crowd and he grabs my wrist. He's like, Anne, I need you. It was fun. I was like, where are we going? But yeah, he had some questions too about registration. So it's a miracle Cape Town happened. Really.
Yes.
Oh man, I'm so glad to have met you. Anyway, and I really, next time we're actually in person, we need to hang out more.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
For many reasons. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, all right. So would you mind, introducing yourself to people who don't know you?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Uh, I'm Pranitha Timothy, also known as Pinky. Um, if Pranitha is difficult to remember, just call me Pinky. I live in India, South India, Chennai, and have two children. My daughter's 14, my
Wow.
son is 7, and my husband Timothy is a musician. He does sound and light engineering. Uh, I work, I think my life's purpose or the work that I do is trying to amplify the voices of people.
Mm,
And interestingly, with my poor voice,
right.
but I think I've dedicated my life to work with the community and to see how can I make a difference in my community.
Mm,
And that is probably the start of my journey. So I work in Chennai and across the globe with anybody who's willing to collaborate and work together.
mm,
Um, I'm a social worker by education,
mhm,
and yeah, maybe a human rights defender.
mhm.
I fight for against injustices,
Yeah.
and yeah, that would be in a nutshell
Yeah.
who I am. Yeah,
I love that. I love that you said the word amplify because God actually gave me
yeah,
that word maybe 2.5 years ago too. He gave me two words,
yes,
multiply and amplify. And it's stayed with me. So
yeah,
multiply, I think that um, my plan is to start to offer training to other people to do like operations and become more operational and increase capacity
yeah,
for people around the world.
right,
Even how do you plan a conference or how do you do projects? How do you manage
mm,
projects and teams of people, especially if they're around the
yeah,
world? Because let's see, Nana, he came up to me in
yeah,
Jakarta and that's a fun moment. And he leans in, he goes, Anne. Like, and I'm very short, so I'm like, yes. And he's like, you must come to Ghana. You must come to my country and teach us how you plan conferences. He's like, I will show you around my country. So it's been really that
yeah,
never happened, but I think it's really amazing to be invited. And then I was also invited to Ethiopia um, to train people too. So then I'm like, wow, to have those
yeah,
opportunities. So I want to try to do that, but not just me actually traveling to the world, but maybe because of
mm-hmm,
technology, we can offer training modules. Yeah, and then amplify,
right,
which is why I'm doing these Instagram lives with all these people that I admire.
great. Yeah.
So yeah.
I intentionally say that because people have begun to use this tagline saying the voice for the voiceless,
Mm,
when really all of us have a voice. It's just that either the voice is suppressed or we don't allow the voices to be heard.
mm-hmm,
And so I have to keep correcting people saying, no, I'm not the voice for the voiceless. Everybody has a voice.
mm-hmm.
It's just that we allow people, we make ways and we amplify those voices and allow them to speak. So I think it's important for us to make that differentiation.
Yeah, yeah, that's important. Well, I'm convinced that people are doing a lot of incredible work. so that they're doing it really quietly, which is beautiful, but that we could really all learn from each other and be inspired. Like, oh,
Yes,
that's how Pranita is responding to her
right.
community, and this is how I respond to my community in Toronto. And it's different, but maybe we could, and I think we should be able to learn from each other. And like, oh, if that's how you're doing it
We
there,
should.
maybe that
Yeah.
could work here in Canada too. So, yeah. So, how did you get into what you're doing? What was your growing up or?
Yeah. Yeah. So I grew up in a very tiny village in India. It's still very tiny. It's not developed. It's um, right up in a state called Karnataka. And I kind of was born and brought up there because my parents were doctors, chose to pick up the rural
Mm,
parts of India where there is no access to medical care and healthcare.
wow.
So I grew up in this tiny village, went to the local school, never thought of going out beyond that village. Right? That was my world. I never thought about, just stepping out of that. Growing up, I still am. I'm a total introvert. I'm shy, I'm timid.
Hmm.
Uh, I have these fears about facing people, talking to people. Growing
Wow.
up, that's how I was. But growing up, that kind of immobilized me, like when I see people.
Mm.
And I've been able to overcome that. And today, people will be like, no way, you're not an introvert. But that's not true. I am. I love my space. I love my quiet
Wow.
time. So growing up in the village, I would say I had a privileged life because a doctor in a village is considered a leader. Like I remember my dad not just leading the hospital, but you end up doing all the other everything in the village. Like he would decide between two disputes. He
Oh,
would be called
wow.
if there is. I remember, I think one of the things which really shook me up or shocked me was my dad was called to this dispute where a woman was actually tied up to a tree
Oh no.
because, very much like what you read in the biblical times where she was being accused of adultery
Oh.
and the villagers were actually uh, accusing her and my dad had to go and sort it out. So I grew up in this kind of uh, culture and I saw things that you don't normally see in the city.
Yes.
But in the village, yeah.
Wow.
So that was me, and I never really thought I would go out. But because I studied in the local school, my parents felt that education is important. They
Mm.
had to get me to a better school, and I moved out of the village into a boarding school. So
Mm-hmm.
from the age of 12, I've never really lived with
Mm.
family. I've lived independent on my own, either in the boarding school or, yes, of course, now I'm married and have kids, but
Yeah.
never really experienced family life
Mm-hmm.
as such, except on once a year.
Mm-hmm.
We came home for holidays
Wow.
for a month.
Mm.
So that was my growing up. Kind of made me rebellious because I had to fight my way through everything.
Yeah.
Have two siblings who are older, always lived in their shadow. Uh, in fact, I felt comfortable staying behind them because,
Oh.
I'm shy and
Yeah.
timid. But I think there was a point where I'm like, okay, I need to like get out of their shadows and just be myself,
Mm.
which was a struggle because I struggled with self-worth and dignity and just being who I am. I think I never was confident that my thoughts or what I say would be accepted
Mm-hmm.
or my opinions even mattered.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I grew up. And yes, my schooling was there. Then I moved to the city
Mm.
for college. That was, yeah, I moved to Chennai
Oh
and
wow.
I've continued to live here in Chennai. Moved here for college, moved out for 2 years, but otherwise came back married.
Wow.
Timmy, who's from Chennai and lived here ever since. So very short, yeah, that's my life. Um,
Wow.
Never thought I would get into activism,
Hmm.
but a few things changed. I think when I was finishing college, I told you I was rebellious. So there was one point in my life where in college I got expelled.
Oh,
Um, okay, I don't know if you knew that,
I
but
know.
I got expelled from Women's Christian College, and I didn't know what I'll do because that means I get back to my village and I have no future. I cannot
Ooh.
study, I cannot do anything. And
Wow.
I remember, like, I did not believe in any faith or religion at that point. And
Hmm.
I remember, like, if there is a God, he will just get me out of the situation.
Hmm.
And I did. I think my parents pleaded with the principal, and I had to write out a agreement with the college that I will not exhibit deviant behavior,
Wow.
that I will follow rules, and a lot of rules changed in college after that.
Oh,
So I
okay.
came back to college, but once my life took a more inward journey. I
Hmm.
began to think, is life worth it? Why do I exist? What am I on this earth for?
Right.
What happens when I die?
Hmm.
And the eternal, those are the questions that started coming up. And when I finished college, I think I finally made a decision um, to either live a life that's purposeful or there's no point in living.
Wow.
So that was probably the change after college, and I took up social work.
Hmm.
And when I took up social work, I did have a heart to serve the rural India because that's where I grew up.
Okay.
But that wasn't yet activism, you
No.
know.
Yeah. Right.
But when I was finishing college, that's when uh, by now I had a relationship uh, with faith, and I had embraced the Christian faith,
Hmm.
and I was really drawn to the person of Jesus Christ
Hmm.
because he was like amazing.
Hmm.
Like when I read stories about him, he touched, even today you cannot touch a leper, but
Hmm.
he touched a leper
Yeah.
and he called him out from the colony and he brought him right up to the center. In my culture, women who are menstruating are kept outside. We have,
What?
similar
Wow.
kind of practices that were followed then. But he brought this menstruating woman right to the center of community and he lifted her up. He changed her status. She was no longer someone who was marginalized.
Wow.
So I followed stories about him and what he did.
Hmm.
And I thought, this is the way I want to live.
Hey, can I
And,
like
the
ask?
ultimate,
Can I ask, like,
yeah,
so if you did that, I mean, does that still happen in India now, or is it more integrated
it
with the?
does. No, it does
Oh,
happen even now with leprosy as well as with, and there are enough, even Bollywood has enough movies that were brought out even like last year and the year before that. Like, how do we get over this entire,
mm-hmm,
discrimination against women
mm-hmm.
who are menstruating, or even leprosy is still considered uh,
Wow.
taboo. You have separate colonies for the people who suffer
Mm-hmm,
from leprosy. We also have caste discrimination, status, and those are realities back then. And women continue to be looked down. Like even in my village, the adultery was involved both men and women, but
mm-hmm.
it was a woman who was tied up, right?
Of course.
And
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah,
That's
and
just.
that's what Jesus did. He called the woman who was in adultery and he said, if anybody else hasn't sinned, you throw the first stone.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was doing was actually allowing the woman to see that, yes, there is a right path, but at the same time, there is change possible, that you will not be condemned by at least that one person, and that was him.
Yeah.
So, how do we work with people without judging them? How do we embrace
Mm-hmm.
and love unconditionally? So,
Yes.
that has been my journey of activism. So, once I saw, just how people should be loved, how
Mm-hmm.
people should be embraced,
Mm-hmm.
I think that became my kind of practice, and I'm not perfect at it. I try my best. I'm still very judgmental. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
shocked by people's behavior, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm convicted.
Yeah.
Like, no, I
Well,
should be
there's
loving
right. I mean, there's
unconditionally.
still
Yes.
ways. There's still, I think, right and wrong. Like there's still. So you're like,
Right?
it's not like you're releasing that, but it's like recognizing that there's still human beings and there's still people who need to
Yes.
be shown love and need to see it maybe for the first
Yes.
time.
Yeah. And I think I've also learned over the years that there are many gray areas. There
Mm-hmm.
is right and wrong,
Right.
but there is also the in between,
Yeah.
which I wasn't very comfortable with when I started my work. For example, we have all of us would definitely be able to understand this fight between pro-life and,
Mm-hmm.
choice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I work with women who are pregnant in situations of domestic violence,
Yeah.
pregnant because of rape.
Right.
What is right? What is wrong?
Mm-hmm.
How do you decide for a child who's
Mm-hmm.
pregnant?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
how do you decide? So these are not easy questions.
Yeah.
These are struggles that we have. And I think we need to respect the individual.
Mm-hmm.
We need to love the individual. We may have our own.
Mm-hmm.
I have my convictions. I have things that I stand by.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I cannot impose
Oh,
what
right.
I believe in
Mm-hmm.
upon others. But what it means to love unconditionally
Mm-hmm.
is to share what may be the right thing, but at the same time stand, journey,
Mm-hmm.
walk alongside,
Mm-hmm.
lift them up
Wow.
from whatever decisions they make,
Yeah.
and not to force our own decisions on them.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that's what it means to empower somebody, to give them the ability to make
Yes.
decisions that affect their own lives. Because
Right.
otherwise, then they're just disempowered and then they are true victims, but
Yeah.
like whenever
And
possible,
we re-victimize.
right, which would
Yeah.
be terrible. So, I
Right.
mean, thanks for walking in that, in the really difficult contexts and situations and in people's lives. Like, wow. Um, I was curious, like, even, when you're talking about women who have to be outside when they're menstruating or leprosy, what if, like, what would happen if Jesus today brought a woman who was menstruating into the middle of the village? What would happen, do you think?
Uh, I think the same thing that happened before.
Okay.
Rejection.
Yeah.
Like, is this a false prophet? Is he, yeah, like, does he know what he's doing?
Yeah.
Because I remember there's a conversation of where there's this woman who comes and blesses him and anoints his feet. And the
Yes.
people in the room are thinking, if you only knew how sinful this woman is,
Yeah.
and if you really are a prophet and a Messiah, you
Mm-hmm.
would know
Yeah.
how sinful she is.
Right.
The same thing. I think that would exactly be the situation.
Yeah.
And Jesus rebukes them, saying, she will be remembered for eternity.
I know.
And
I
again,
love that
he
story.
empowers her, he lifts her up and puts her back in the place that she belongs,
Yeah.
which is a place of dignity, a place of, acceptance.
Mm-hmm. I know. I love
Yeah.
that story, and it makes me just fall in love with Jesus more because I'm like, wow. Hey, so then, I mean, how has what you do impacted how you actually study the Bible?
I think what I learn impacts what I do. I mean, it's either way too.
Mm,
For me, what I took
right.
from the Bible is, that Jesus says the greatest commandment is to love your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that because your neighbor could be anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And especially the Good Samaritan story, where you
Mm,
have the priest, and then you have the worship leader, and then the Levite, and then you have this person from a lower caste who's walking down that path. And all of these situations are so real to
Mm-hmm.
me today
Mm-hmm.
within our community and within the church. And I think that story was so intentional because Jesus was sharing a story. It was a parable. He
Yes.
could have picked any character,
Yeah.
but he chose the characters very, very carefully.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that the person who was thrown on the roadside, who was robbed, was derobed. Because today we even have, even today, we recognize people by the dress that we
Mm-hmm.
wear.
Mm-hmm.
We have very distinct ways that certain groups of people dress.
Mm.
And I think through this story, we know that we don't judge people from their backgrounds, where they come from, what they wear, how they look. And so it's interesting that this man on the road was stripped of his
Mm.
clothes.
Wow.
So the Samaritan man did not know who he was helping.
Wow.
And that's a neighbor. We are called to help every single person.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get to choose. We love everybody we find.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think
Mm.
as I read more from scriptures, as I understand more, I think it helps me become a better person. It helps me see the prejudices that I have
Yeah.
and, what I can bring to the world.
Mm-hmm.
How can I bring unconditional love? How
Mm-hmm.
can I bring healing? And if you notice that story in the Good Samaritan, this man was carrying everything. I mean, I was like, what bag do you have? Where you have oil, bandages,
I know.
money. Yeah, like
Yeah,
he had everything
he was
to
ready.
wound and dress that person. So I think we need to be ready at all times to
Mm.
embrace people and embrace all kinds of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, we're all busy. I really appreciate everyone who's taken time to join this call
Mm-hmm.
because I know people are tired of being online and yet
I
we
know.
make these decisions to make space and to listen to people.
Mm-hmm.
So this man was on his journey. So was the priest. So
Mm-hmm.
was the Levite. All of them were on a journey.
Right.
All of them were going
Yeah.
through something.
Yep.
We're all busy,
Mm-hmm.
but we are called to make time
Mm-hmm.
for those who are suffering,
Mm-hmm.
time for our neighbors, time to lift up those who've been robbed,
Mm-hmm.
um, shelterless, suffering. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think definitely what I read in scriptures helps me become a much better person
Yeah.
and bring healing in a much better way.
Yeah. And even if your neighbor is a total jerk, like mine.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
that's what scripture says. Like, what is it if you love those who love you?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But we're called to love our enemies, which is a much higher standard.
Oh
Not
no.
just love our enemies, but to give up our lives for them. So, yeah, so the stories really make sense to me because
Mm-hmm.
we continue to live in a state of discrimination,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is gender, caste, ethnicity, all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the midst of that, we're called to love our enemies. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a totally different
Wow.
paradigm of operation, a totally different way to live our lives. And I think that kind of set me free
Mm-hmm.
and it liberated me and how I live and what I do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's incredible, like what you're saying, because in North America, for sure, because of COVID, there's a lot more violence towards Asian people that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another layer
That's
to the whole pandemic for Asian people who live in North America. Um,
right.
and it's so crazy to me that people can't tell the difference, you know what I mean? Asian person or
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like a virus that has come from China. So, like,
Yeah.
anyway, but then if whenever we experience racism or discrimination on our gender or ethnicity, to actually turn around and love that person, love our enemy,
Right.
is
Right.
crazy, but it's what we're called to do.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not easy.
Not easy.
Not easy.
But you're like,
No.
whoa. But incredible. Yeah. So then, yeah. I would love for you to talk about what you are up to these days and like what have you been
Mm,
doing and like and also like yeah, also what brings you joy in what you do.
yeah, sure. So, of course, COVID kind of disrupted all our lives.
Mm,
And right from March of last year,
mm-hmm.
I think our life just became totally crazy because initially we were trying to adjust to the lockdowns, and
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering what we should do. And for me, I think my joy comes from being in the community, serving, helping people, reaching out. That's a kind of place that I'm the most comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But lockdown suddenly just restricted us home, and
Mm-hmm.
I've always had a home that's open, and
Mm-hmm.
people just come home, and our fridge is open, our everything, the whole home is open. So
Wow.
my kids who are 7 and 14 also have to share everything they own,
Yeah.
right? And now suddenly everything shut down. But I kept asking God, like, how can we serve in the midst of all of this? And it was incredible how the people in India, that is what I saw, there were many who felt the same way.
Mm,
And so, what began in April, we said, okay, what can we do,
mm-hmm.
even sitting at home?
Mm-hmm.
So, we started a small WhatsApp group, just a few of us
Mm-hmm.
joined in, and within 3 days, 247, right? That's the max limit.
I
We
don't
had to
know.
like
That's
open
awesome.
out, yeah, so we had to open out another 10 WhatsApp groups
What?
just to hold in
Oh my God.
about 1,500 volunteers across India
Whoa.
that joined in. And I think what triggered that was just the images of people walking home.
Mhm.
Because when the lockdown hit
Right.
in India, we have the huge
Mhm.
crisis of migration.
Yeah.
We have the entire, like, North Indian states that migrate to South India where there are factories and
Mm-hmm.
opportunities for jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And now suddenly millions of people were locked in,
Whoa.
no jobs, employers are out of money,
Mm-hmm.
they cannot support them. It was unsustainable, and I
Mm-hmm.
think no government can also
Mm-hmm.
manage such a huge, it was too much of a burden on the system,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it required the civil society to come forward. It
Mm-hmm.
required each one of us to
Wow.
step in. And
Wow.
I think that's what we saw. We were working almost 24/7.
Wow.
We had set up call centers, we had set up. So it began with the migrant work. The government had given us trains,
Mm-hmm.
but the trains can only carry 1,600 people per day.
Oh my,
And there
what?
are thousands of people.
Oh no.
So,
Wow.
and I mean, I can just keep talking, but let me just cut it down to say
Okay.
that what we were doing was picking up a team that would pick up people from the roads walking. They
Mm.
have walked like 300 kilometers in
Whoa.
the, I told you, it's really hot
Oh,
without water, food,
oh no.
and people were dying
Oh
just
no.
from dehydration and hunger.
Whoa.
So there was a team that was picking up people.
Mm-hmm.
We were working with the government and placing them in shelters.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking at the overwhelming need for hospital beds. So there
Mm-hmm.
was a team that was coordinating hospital beds, admissions,
Mm-hmm.
and this was in the beginning. So any home that was declared COVID positive
Mm-hmm.
faced discrimination. So
Right.
they were like blocked off, they couldn't get out.
Oh
So how
no.
do we supply food?
Mm-hmm.
The government comes and picks up those who are positive and puts them in the hospital. So the first family we heard of was a grandmother and two toddlers.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh.
How do they survive?
Yeah.
Grandmother couldn't cook and the toddlers. So we began supplying food
Mm-hmm.
for those who are positive. Anyway, so by
Wow.
the end of it, we still continue to work. The networks remain, but the need changed as the
Mm.
months went by.
Yes.
We started getting cases of domestic violence, child
Oh
sexual
my
abuse.
goodness, right.
We ran online trainings 3 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
and we still continue trainings at least one or two per week even now.
Wow.
And so we went into that, and then so we were supplying provisions because people were out of jobs. We were
Wow.
supplying cooked food because how do you cook food when you're displaced? There's no
Yeah, there's no way.
you
You don't
can't
even.
there's no home. So they were
Whoa.
homeless, right?
Yeah.
So we were doing both of that. We were providing provisions for those who can cook and those who cannot cook. We had cooked meals being supplied on the roads.
Wow.
And I cannot explain the complexity because even for us to step out in a lockdown, we needed permissions.
Oh my.
And the permissions would expire within 24 hours. So you
No.
reapply.
Every day?
Yeah. And then, of course, yeah. So, especially for domestic violence rescues,
Yes.
we just apply for our permission. And by the time it comes, it's too late to go pick them up. So we apply again. Anyway, but then the government very quickly adapted. They
Okay.
realized that these are the places where we need to give blanket permissions. And we got those permissions and we
Okay.
were able to work. So right now we continue to do our old casework, which is we work in the areas of domestic violence, child sexual abuse, trafficking, which includes migration. We started a new project in the middle of COVID, which is to help the people with who are differently abled and disabled. You know, interestingly, I felt it was the right time because for the first time, I think the majority of the public and the community understood what it is to be locked up inside your home.
Phew, yeah.
And the people who are differently abled are locked up for their whole life.
That's right.
And
Wow.
you're able to empathize to
Wow.
some extent, if not fully. So
Right.
we started the disability program and we launched a healthcare program because we knew, I mean, I've known this right from my childhood because I grew up in hospitals because of my parents, but healthcare is definitely not accessible and affordable for the poor. So we were reaching out to the rural hospitals and providing, you know, it was unbelievable that some of the hospitals received medical protective kits for the first time. And we were already into 3 or 4 months
Whoa.
of COVID, and doctors were serving with
Whoa.
sacrificing their safety and
Yeah.
serving the people. And we can't really blame anybody because the whole system was overburdened. We've never, the world hadn't faced something like this before.
No one was ready.
And
That's right.
so
Wow.
no one was ready. And so it took all of us, I think, every single person who was able to do something. You
Wow.
know, it required all of us. And I think I saw collaborations globally. You know, people stepped in from across the globe to help and to support and just do what was required. Required a lot of trust. Today I met one of my teammates. I worked with 1 year, okay, every single day, but I
Wow.
never met face to face.
Whoa.
And
Right.
yeah, so I'm still meeting all those amazing people who
Oh,
helped out for the past 1 year.
incredible.
We're just meeting up now because we don't have the restrictions.
Uh-huh.
So incredible the work
Yeah.
that happened.
Wow.
It required all of us to step in, and I don't think any single person can take credit for it. And yeah, amazing. I just saw amazing things during a lot of suffering, yes. But in the midst of suffering, there was so much hope. There was so much of togetherness, unity, not just within, even between communities, between faith groups, within gender, you know, differences, all of that, you know. When there is a crisis, all of that falls.
That's
And you're
awesome.
reaching out and working and taking care of what's very important and critical.
Yeah. Way to go. I think that's really cool how you guys all responded. It's not just a small group, it was like
Yeah,
thousands, hundreds of people like
yeah,
that. Yeah, because we heard about that, in Canada. I read about the migration that was happening in India and how difficult it was. And like, I was like, felt so bad for the people who had to walk and like how difficult that would be. So that I didn't know though. Like the media doesn't tell you like the
Right.
actual people who respond in really incredible
Yeah.
ways over all over your country. So wow, in all the different areas. Wow.
Yeah.
So thanks. If nobody says thanks,
Yeah.
but oh, there's so many issues too, right? And I think that even with our church, we went online and then
Mm-hmm.
and it's so great because we're all on YouTube and
Right.
we chat with each other in the chat. We're like, good morning, hello. And then, and then you see that there's actually our older people are watching as well and
Mm-hmm.
chatting who
Right.
normally wouldn't be able to come to church because of like, physical like challenges of moving around. So then yeah,
Yes.
even for us, we're like, oh, wow, technology is really helpful in reaching out. And we should have been doing this a long time ago,
Yes.
but good to like
Yeah. I
be forced to do this.
Yeah, I completely, I've always been this Zoom person ever since it started
Yeah,
because I think,
me too.
yeah, I think we also recognized, the mental health
Mm,
that people, it took a huge toll on many people.
mm-hmm.
And so we had to start counseling online,
Mm,
had to start connecting with people online.
yes. Wow.
Just taking my own daughter, my daughter's 14.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly she's cut off from all friendships,
Oh no.
right? And um, I think her sleepovers started to happen online. So they would
Oh,
all watch a
really?
movie together.
Oh,
Yeah, so they do movie nights,
oh
they
yeah.
do game nights, and like you said, our church started a teens quest,
Oh, good.
which just brought in teens from all over. So they have these games online. I think amazing, amazing to see how community has bounced back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important that we notice what are the areas that people are struggling
Mm-hmm.
and just step in and do something that can change that situation. So, yes, I'm so happy that people finally embraced online.
Mm-hmm.
I've always believed that we should have hybrid sessions of church.
Yeah.
And right from 2016, I think I've enjoyed that because I think it was after my son was born. I couldn't go out
Mm-hmm.
as a parent
Mm-hmm.
uh, while I was nursing my son or
Oh, I know.
when I was in the last stages of pregnancy. I really wished, of course, we do have church online,
Yeah.
but this is
Okay.
much more interactive today, right?
Okay. Uh-huh.
Because everybody is online.
Yeah.
So I hope it stays,
Yeah.
especially for those of us who are bound at home, the differently abled, the
Mm-hmm.
elderly,
Mm-hmm.
women and children who cannot step out of their home because of violence. I
Yeah.
think hybrid sessions are amazing and you can reach a lot of people.
Yeah, it's really been helpful to keep me even grounded for sure. Once a week I
Mm-hmm.
know I'm gonna connect with my church family and then we
Yeah,
check in with each other. So it's really
yeah,
helpful. I think mental health, it really has highlighted mental health and wellness in that
yes,
area. It's so important as well. And also just how creative we can be if we have to be.
yes,
So that's
yeah,
pretty awesome. And also I think
yeah,
the resilience in the midst of like real
mm-hmm.
issues. So I'm like, wow,
Yes,
hmm, that's impressive. Yeah. So then, yeah, I'm so glad. Thanks for doing that. Oh, also wanted to say to the people who are watching, if you have questions, you can always type your questions in. Um, yeah, but thanks for that. What was my other, is there anything you want us to do? Like, oh, okay. I think my other question was, what should we know wherever we're at? Like, I guess there's that lady who was watching from Ukraine, and then also my friend Ivan from California, and then definitely here in Canada. Like, is there anything that we should help us, we should know to help us understand, like what you do in India, and then also, is there anything we can do to help?
yeah. I think I'll break that into two parts. The first part is I believe that each of us are within a community
Hmm.
to be a difference there.
Yeah.
So I would first always encourage people like you are in that community, in that family,
Yeah.
in that geographical area to make a difference right there,
Hmm.
and to be open to listen, to understand the problems that are within your community and within your influence.
Hmm.
And I think we should always be grounded there first and do whatever difference that we can make within that space. And of course, there are many of us who can be uh, influential across countries, and we have a global influence.
Hmm.
And to them, I would suggest, like just like you're connecting with me,
Hmm.
um, I think each of us respond to a need
Hmm.
where we have empathy,
Hmm.
and for empathy, we may have either encountered a problem in our life or an overcome situation.
Hmm.
So reach out to people who you know and you trust. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Just,
Hmm.
I think I'm off the. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
You can
I
still
can
hear
hear
me.
you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I would say reach out to friends like in India who you trust to understand what are the issues that
Hmm.
you can help with, or you can, because you know your heart. And sometimes maybe you just want to understand issues, and very happy to explain the needs that are there. How can you partner? How can we come alongside? How can we work together? Even simple things like resources. You mentioned the word resilience.
Hmm.
I did not study resilience.
Hmm.
Like resilience is taught in universities, but I
Oh,
wasn't taught when I was studying, right?
neither was I.
So we can learn a lot from other universities. So
Hmm.
I I learned a lot of subjects, resources. Let me just give you some examples. Like when I studied suffering, resilience, vulnerability, these are things that I did not learn in the academic books here, but I
Hmm.
learned from my friends in other universities.
Okay.
So there are many ways you can partner and you can help. One of the things that I required was, you know, what is stays in Canada, UK, US, New Zealand, Australia. You know, they have syllabus that, or even systems in place for child sexual abuse. How does
Mm.
how does the community deal with it? The government
Hmm.
itself has its own way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
We have an amazing law in India, and
Okay.
but we are very new, right? So you
Oh.
have walked the path much longer,
Hmm.
and so the resources you have on restoration of someone who's in violence,
Hmm.
domestic violence, or someone who's been through sexual violence
Hmm.
is much more defined and formed better than
Hmm.
what we have in India. So we
Wow.
look after each other, and we reach out to each other. We
Hmm.
exchange resources, and I have a friend who is in Singapore who's working
Hmm.
on memory. And for me,
Hmm.
memory is something that's so intriguing because when you go through sexual violence, sorry, when you go through sexual violence, your memory can switch off, it can be suppressed.
Mm.
So we've been
Wow.
exchanging.
Okay. You all right?
Yeah, this happens often. So
Okay.
yes, we've been exchanging notes on how memory can be used by
Wow.
counselors, social workers. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm. Yes.
it's interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have a friend, she teaches, she has her doctorate in theater because she's actually worked with children who were child soldiers in the
Wow.
Congo and in other countries. Um, and then she actually works with them after because all of their
Mm.
memories are of war and
Yes.
they don't remember moments of joy. When,
Yeah.
and that's heartbreaking for kids who sometimes have lost their families and also just lost like their hands and so she helps them through theater acting to
Wow.
try to remember good memories and then to
Mm-hmm.
actually she has them freeze in those
Yeah.
memories of and then she's like okay and then she's like has them explain what they're acting out and like that moment of joy and then it
Yeah.
might be small but she's like remember that small moment and then hopefully your memory will come back of like other really good memories so that they can not just remember their traumatic experiences as well. So I
Yeah.
think that's really powerful. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can partner on many levels. You can
Mhm.
partner with giving. You can partner with resources like this.
Mhm.
Trainings. Yeah. So
Mhm.
we just had a training on ACEs, which is
Mhm.
childhood, traumas.
Mm.
So we had an expert trainers on that. So yeah, so there are many ways to partner. If you know, I mean, your connection is the person you know in
Mhm.
that country and in India.
Mhm.
If someone wants to know, they could definitely reach out to me and I can explain based on their expertise and their strengths
Mhm.
how they could contribute. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. You're a huge networker then. So good. Yay. Thanks so much.
We can do nothing without networking today.
Yes, and that's
Yeah.
why we need each other. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, and it's such an important topic and you are the person that I was thinking about was like, well, I think it's well, obviously um sexual exploitation, human trafficking is a global
Mm-hmm.
issue and something that we are
Yeah.
tackling here in Canada, but you're like my friend. So I was like, I wanted to learn from you, you know, and also how we can partner together. So I love that you say to us to really contribute in our neighborhoods where we live and
Yeah.
to be local and to really
Yeah.
see what's going around us here and it's not always issues in like other parts of the world but there's also issues here and how to be a
Right.
good neighbor so really
Yeah.
good thanks
Yeah.
and it's been almost an hour already but I feel like the time
Oh
has
wow.
zoomed by.
Yeah.
uh, and I hear your kids in the background and I think that's awesome and I'd love to meet your family sometime. That'd be so awesome.
Sure. Definitely.
Do they take after
Soon,
you?
when
Oh,
the
sorry.
borders open up. Yeah. Right now, everything is still shut. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, here too. I need a new
Yeah.
passport and I haven't even like gotten a new passport because I don't even know when I can actually travel next. So, um, all right. Well, what are you up to in the near future, other than like being still locked down?
So our work is going on full time.
Oh,
Like
okay.
even today, I just got back. The government has opened up facilities. We work in partnership with the government
Mhm.
in helping those. Uh, one of our projects is trafficking. So we work with the government in restoration of children who've been trafficked.
Mhm.
And so we had a meeting today, and yeah, so our work is continuing. Like I said, it's become even more since COVID started. So
Yes.
24/7, yeah, around the clock, and
Wow.
just like globally, domestic violence has taken an increase. I think we've seen about 300% increase in our cases
Yeah.
in domestic violence, and
Mhm.
so yeah, so that's what I will be continuing to do.
Hmm.
And kids are online school, so
Okay.
yeah, and helping them with that.
Yeah.
Um, we are privileged. We have a laptop and a phone, but majority of the kids are out of school because
Hmm.
they don't have gadgets. And
Mm.
yeah, so all of this, I mean, there's a lot of downside. We can get completely immobilized by what we see around and the extent and the gravity
Hmm.
of the situation.
Hmm.
So I think the next few days we will continue as we did to make the little changes that we can,
Yeah. I love.
and hopefully, yeah, all of us, when we put everybody's efforts together, there
Hmm.
will be a huge change.
Oh man.
So that's it. I think.
Yeah.
I think just do what we can within the capacity that we have.
Yeah. And use that creativity that we have
Yeah,
to respond in
right.
creative ways because we're just so restricted, but we still want to be helpful and and really love the people around us. So I'm impressed with even like your WhatsApp groups. I'm still stuck on that. I didn't even know what the capacity for WhatsApp groups. So I'm like, that's amazing. So I learned a lot. It's so awesome to see you, and thanks for joining me, and really
Yeah,
really appreciate what you do. So
thank you, Anne. And
anyway,
it's been
take
a
care.
privilege, like I said, it's been a privilege to share my story. And I thank everyone who's watching and all friends. I see so many,
Yeah.
Twyla, and yeah, so many there. So thank you so much for listening and joining us today. Thank you, Anne. It's been a
Yeah, thanks.
privilege. Yeah.
Hope to see you soon. Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Bye
bye.
bye.